Hi, welcome to Fishy Wild. Whether you're a seasoned koi keeper or a novice enthusiast, the thrill of adding new koi to your pond is unparalleled. If you like the look of power and grace working in unison, then Showa might be the fish you were looking for. With its bold, wrapping black markings that complement the colors of red and white, to create a dynamic panorama in 3 colors. Showa is considered one of the big 3, along with kohaku and sankei, and at most koi shows, one of these varieties will usually win grand champion. Interesting, right? A Showa can be recognized by any of several easily identifiable characteristics. As already mentioned, 3 colors must be present, but it is the placement of these colors that sets the Showa apart from other 3-colored fish. Black should appear somewhere on all parts of the body, the head, trunk, and caudal section. This black should appear as large wrapping bands, or bold patches, sometimes connecting with each other. Some buyers will choose large koi, aged 2 to 3 years. However, buying a young Showa under 1 year old is also very fun and challenging. Selecting a young Showa can be a tricky proposition. This is because the black doesn't usually appear fully until 3 or 4 years of age. To complicate matters further, if a baby Showa has black that appears complete, it may very well disappear and reappear years later in totally different locations. For this reason, it is best to select a Showa with an attractive kohaku, red and white pattern, but with hints of black to come, which will appear as bluish shadows beneath the skin. You should know, not all Showa is fierce and intimidating. There are also categories of Showa color composition that are soft and sweet. A more recent development in the Showa variety is known as Kindai, or modern Showa. This type of Showa is more delicate in appearance, with more white than red or black, and with the black and red appearing in distinctly different locations from each other rather than overlapping as on traditional Showa. But, what is Kindai Showa? How can we find difference between Showa and Kindai Showa? The Kindai Showa cost almost 3 times more than a Showa, but why? In today's video we will have a little talk about this Kindai Showa. Let's check it out.
But before we continue, it's a good idea to subscribe to this channel first, because there will be lots of updates about koi carp that you definitely don't want to miss. Please hit the subscribe button below. Thank you.
As we just talked, old-style Showa koi are heavily endowed with sumi. Modern Showa, also known as Kindai Showa, exhibit a sparser distribution of sumi. Kindai means modern. By definition, it describes a Showa that has a lot of shiroji more than the conventional black-based Showa. You probably already know, when Showa was first developed, they were mostly covered with high-end sumi and had very little shiroji. Those original Showa are now called Hai Showa, or Mukashi Showa. Kindai Showa are an improvement that were developed from the original Showa to have more shiroji, which gives them a more balanced appearance. A Kindai Showa will have a lot of shiroji showing. Old-style Showas are covered almost completely with red hi and black sumi. If the fish looks like it will develop into a mostly white fish, with black and red markings, then it is a Kindai. A Showa that is mostly black and red, with little white is an old-style Showa. There is no difference besides pattern. From my limited experience, Kindai Showa refers to a new style of Showa, where the white predominates. All Showas are black koi, with red and white pattern. Kindai Showas appear like a white koi, with red and black pattern, but they all originate from the same black background. Its striking white base stands out from traditional Showa koi, and gives any pond a lush, vibrant look. Its proportionally smaller red he and black sumi add to its distinctive, eye-catching appearance. For those looking for a strikingly different koi, the Kindai Showa is a perfect choice. Classic Showa, called classic because it's indeed a classic aged variety, if we look back at the Showa's history. Before 1975, Showa were represented by the lineage of Kobayashi Showa. On the whole, these Showa had a lot of sumi, black, and very little shiroji, white. The sumi and hai, red, regularly overlapped each other. Because of the large amount of sumi, the impression was of tremendous power. Some breeders were not satisfied with Kobayashi Showa, because they felt that the same sumi that gave a feeling of power also lacked in beauty. This is why they developed the new, or Kindai Showa. Kindai Showa are characterized by the separation of red he and black sumi. They should harmonize to create a bright impression. In Showa, the sumi design of the tail section is important. At the tail section, black sumi or red he must end on pure white background, and the line between the color and the shiroji is called the adome. The lack of real shiroji after the adome can be considered a major fault. Motoguro, or black sumi on the pectoral fins, is a major attribute of Showa. Beautiful pectoral fins are extremely rare. Because the face is the most appealing part of its beauty, it is important that the white, sumi and hai harmonize to create a beautiful design without interrupting each other.
So what is the standard of Kindai Showa? Even though many people say it will be very difficult to determine and find. Of course, a Kindai Showa cannot run away from the general rules of a good Showa. So when described, it is as follows. The main conditions for Kindai Showa. A Kindai Showa should show more white as the dominant color, compared to red he or black sumi. This means that the red pattern should be less than the typical Kohaku standard, or also, more of a small spot rather than the usual wide pattern. Likewise with the black streaks. That is, a Kindai Showa has less black. Could mean thinner black streaks, it could also mean smaller black blocks. However, all these colors do not mean eliminating the basic requirements of Showa. The red pattern remains in the Kohaku rules, namely located on the head, middle of the body and base of the tail, which also creates adome spaces. Even though the red pattern is small, it doesn't mean you can be bald or bozu. It's true that the distance between patterns is wider, but avoid bald or empty areas. Because of this, Tsubo sumi, or black patterns that appear on white without touching the red pattern, are important. To avoid the tendency of Kindai Showa to become bald due to the reduction in the red pattern area. The black sumi pattern will have a big influence on the harmony of Kindai Showa, and this makes Kindai Showa a more difficult and rare Showa than classic Showa. Kindai Showa must still have black spots or streaks on his face, have black motoguro spots in his armpits, as well as black streaks, or black blocks of tsubosumi on his body, which is balanced. Finding a Kindai Showa with standard beauty standards like this seems like looking for a needle in a haystack, doesn't it? Difficult, very difficult. That's why good Kindai Showa are very expensive, but it's easy to get high scores at koi shows. To remember it better, let me outline the standard description of Kindai Showa once again. A Kindai Showa should show more white as the dominant color, compared to red he or black sumi. This means that the red pattern should be less than the typical kohaku standard, or also, more of a small spot rather than the usual wide pattern. Likewise with the black streaks. That is, a Kindai Showa has less black. Could mean thinner black streaks, it could also mean smaller black blocks. However, all these colors do not mean eliminating the basic requirements of Showa. The red pattern remains in the kohaku rules, namely located on the head, middle of the body and base of the tail, which also creates adome spaces. Even though the red pattern is small, it doesn't mean you can be bald or bozu. It's true that the distance between patterns is wider, but avoid bald or empty areas. Because of this, subo sumi, or black patterns that appear on white without touching the red pattern, are important. To avoid the tendency of Kindai Showa to become bald due to the reduction in the red pattern area. The black sumi pattern will have a big influence on the harmony of Kindai Showa, and this makes Kindai Showa a more difficult and rare Showa than classic Showa. Kindai Showa must still have black spots or streaks on his face, have black Motoguro spots in his armpits, as well as black streaks, or black blocks of subosumi on his body, which is balanced. Finding a Kindai Showa with standard beauty standards like this, seems like looking for a needle in a haystack, doesn't it? Difficult, very difficult.
Today, there are more Showa that cannot actually be called classic Showa or Kindai Showa, they are somewhere in between. Not much black, but still thick. The red pattern is not very wide, but it is still too big to be categorized as Kindai Showa. However, to be said to be classic Showa, the black is not thick enough. So maybe it's true, these categories ultimately don't really matter. Because to become a champion at the koi show, a Showa needs impression, balance, excellent pattern, and other things, which are not separated but become one whole fish. Not just the Kindai or classic categories, but more than that, a Showa itself. I myself like Kindai Showa, which is sweeter than classic Showa, which is masculine. But sometimes, the character is not strong enough, as an example of a Showa, who should still have a fierce side. It is also difficult to distinguish from a Teisho Sanshoku at a glance. Yes, that's the reality, classic Showa is actually much more characterful than Kindai Showa. If so, which do you like?
Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel, Fishy Wild.